салом бинандагони азиз, ба таваҷҷӯҳи шумо нашри навбатии барномаи иттилоотии навид пешкаш мегардад. Дар студия Мавзуна Ҳакимова. имрӯз таҳти раёсати президенти ҷумҳурии Тоҷикистон, раиси ҳукумати мамлакат Эмомалӣ Раҳмон, маҷлиси навбатии ҳукумати ҷумҳурии Тоҷикистон баргузор гашт, ки дар он беш аз 40 масъала баррасӣ шуд. гузориши ҳамкасбонамон аз хадамоти матбуоти президенти ҷумҳурии Тоҷикистон дар ин хусус.
Thank you, Ashley. Hi, my name is Ashkar Soreyev. I am here in the capital city today at the Presidential Palace for the gathering of the UN experts and debrief after 10 years of the United Nations mission in Tajikistan. Now, the experts have gathered, they've had their panel, and they've discussed the 8 development goals that brought them here. There's been some progresses, some stalls, but overall, it seems Tajikistan is doing quite well. Here's what they had to say.
Half of the Tajik population is considered poor. Tajikistan has faced many difficulties after the independence from USSR or the Soviet Union. In 1992, a major civil war broke out and it lasted about 5 years, and this caused a drastic increase in poverty. 50% of the Tajik population depends on agriculture for main resources of livelihood, and most farmers in Tajikistan don't have exposure to farming technology or any other resources. In 2007, Tajikistan was on a risk of food security due to a major drought. Most of the people affected by the poverty are living in rural areas. So the Hatayam region is considered one of the poorest regions in the world. 78% of the people living there are considered to be below the poverty line.
Universal primary education by 2015 seems to be doubtless, provided there will be appropriate measures taken towards this direction. More than 92% of school-age children are enrolled in general, primary, and secondary vocational education. The graduation ratio is sharply reduced at each subsequent level. In primary school, enrollment is close to 100%. In basic school, already 83%, and in complete secondary education, it falls to 48%. Poverty rates are generally higher in rural than in urban areas, which means there will be an inequality between the access to education in rural and in urban, where there's more money and more services. But even so, rural areas have a rapid decline in extreme poverty. This shows that Tajikistan has been directing their economic growth towards poverty reduction, which is a good sign because more money in people's pockets is more education money to be spent, and as an economy grows, access to education grows. In general, though, until 2009, the high rate of economic growth was the first factor among poverty reduction, with the remittances of migrant workers as the second factor. Nevertheless, the decline in household income caused by the post-2009 financial crisis has, put a roadblock in front of achieving full gains in access to services. The UN has put forward a plan in terms of foreign aid and things like that, building schools to release the burden on the people of Tajikistan to create their own accesses to education, to bridge the gap between the high quality of education offered in urban regions
and women face all kinds of abuse: physical, moral, economic, and sexual. Domestic abuse is considered a family affair, and most women do not report it to the authorities for the fear of being stigmatized. Most women do not work in the paid employment. This makes them fully dependent on their husbands, and they're unable to leave the situation in which they suffer beating and humiliation. Polygamy also leads to abuse. Officially, it is banned in the country, but it is very common. Perhaps it is the most common reason for domestic abuse. Because of jealousy, little conflicts affect everything, and there is a constant state of hostility among adults in the household.
Goal number 5 of the Millennium Development Goals is maternal mortality. Now, this rate in Tajikistan isn't at the level that it should be for a proper standard of living. In 2009, there were about 46 deaths per 100,000 live births. This is already too high, but to add to that, there are many unregistered, unsafe home births, 40 to 60% of them actually. The problem with these is that these home births are often carried out in unsafe conditions without proper medical equipment or staff. 60% of women receive no assistance for 6 weeks after birth. The main risk is the acute shortage of medically trained personnel. There have been multiple efforts to reduce this rate, but it is reducing very slowly. It is said that this may be the last of the goals that will be met if progress is not accelerated. This goal is being met very slowly, but it's doing so by providing proper medical equipment, personnel, and spread. Currently, access to healthcare in Tajikistan is inadequate due to the poor funding, infrastructure, low public awareness, and an insufficient analysis of the quality of the services. 70% of infant mortality is accredited to childhood diseases such as pneumonia, measles, and malaria. To battle these problems, deworming is being conducted once a year for children by the WHO. Also, a massive immunization campaign has been introduced by UNICEF. These have greatly reduced childhood disease and eradicated the polio problem completely. Overall, infant and child mortality rates in Tajikistan remain high, but some progress has been made and there's a clear downward trend being produced.
In Tajikistan, the first cases of HIV were registered in 1991. Until 2003, these cases only appeared sporadically. Since 2003, the improved capacity of HIV and AIDS service, such as registration centers and testing laboratories, led to a higher number in HIV registrations. In the time between 2006 and 2009, the numbers of HIV registrations reached a record high with 1,698 documented cases. The number of HIV registrations is expected to stabilize by 2016 and decrease in the following years. The infection with tuberculosis increased fairly steadily from 38 cases per 100,000 people in 1991 to 85 in 2007. Since 2007, the number has decreased and is expected to go further down. The best progress has been made with malaria. Since an epidemic outbreak of the disease in 1997, where over 30,000 people were infected, the number has decreased significantly to only 165 cases in 2010. The number is expected to go further down as significant changes in the agricultural sector are in progress. Among the East Asian countries, emissions of greenhouse gases in Tajikistan are with only 2 to 3% the lowest in the East Asian region. This is explained by the fact that 98% of the electricity in Tajikistan is produced by hydropower stations. The highest amount of released greenhouse gases was in the year 1990, with 25.5 million tons of greenhouse gases released. The lowest amount was in the year 2000, where only about 7.8 million tons of greenhouse gases were released. Since then, the country has experienced some economic growth, which led to a slight increase in released greenhouse gases. Recommendations for the future include improvement in energy-efficient housing, shifting to cleaner fuels, improving the transport system efficiency, improving agricultural practices and utilization of organic waste, and forest renewal.
MDG aid is aimed at creating new mechanisms for global partnership to address critical issues of socio-economic development of developing and transition countries, as well as improving existing mechanisms for cooperation between the developed and the above-named countries. Links need to be updated so that international and regional financial and economic organizations, NGOs, the developed countries, and transnational corporations can contribute to the elimination of mass unemployment, lowering levels of external debt, and rapid development in information communication technologies. Tajikistan is one of the most vulnerable not only in Central Asia, but even in the Asian continent in this respect. As a result of numerous factors, Tajikistan's place among the least developed countries such as Bangladesh, Nepal, Cambodia, Laos, People's Democratic Republic, and Timor-Leste. This country needs more and intensive assistance from international donors since the low GDP per capita brings a risk that the 7 MDG'S with regard to Tajikistan are unlikely to be met without such assistance. One of the indicators of Goal 8 is the unemployment rate amongst young people. According to different expert estimates, including myself, Tajikistan, around 30 to 59% of young people are jobless. The country does not have the logistical and financial capacity to employ a growing number of young people from year to year, and as a result, they seek jobs either in the informal sector or leave for other countries in search of work. And the number of young people entering external migration is continuously increasing. The international community has not yet paid due attention to this category of youth. The growth rate of both fixed and mobile phone networks in Tajikistan is far behind other CIS countries despite the boom felt in the country. Installation of telephones in rural, mountainous, and outlying areas is occurring at a very slow pace. Many rural areas are not fully covered by any fixed or mobile phone network. Internet services in Tajikistan also lag far behind other countries, although the rate of growth in the number of internet users is high. In Tajikistan, access to information and communication technologies is constrained by low demand of the population and decreasing overall literacy. The above technologies are widely used by the people with relatively high incomes, and poor and extremely poor groups of the population remain excluded from their active use. In recent years, the external debt structure has been deteriorated with an increasing proportion of debts of bilateral nature, example, individual countries having a debt with Tajikistan or reverse. Some of these countries acting as borrowers have the geopolitical interests in mind rather than the interests of Tajikistan. These debts are not usually written off and can put pressure for a very long time. Another not less serious point is that there is also still no effective monitoring on the effectiveness or utilization of borrowed funds. Neither the central government authorities nor businesses get used to a practice where the resulting profit would be the main source of debt repayment and its interest. In Tajikistan, thankfully, there are a number of international microcredit organizations that carry out operations either directly by themselves or involve local NGOs as their representatives. In the past 10 years, they have achieved a great deal, not only in such areas as microcrediting in order to increase self-employment and develop micro and small enterprises, but also in disseminating skills and knowledge on the use of micro and small loans. Thus, such reorganizations have already managed to make an important contribution not only to improve living standards, reduce poverty and unemployment, but also relieve social tension in the country. In general, the current achievements in Tajikistan are difficult to imagine without the purposeful and regular activities of such organizations, which provide the country with a wide range of much needed assistance. Looking forward, economists such as myself have been discussing the possibility of opening up free trade in the region. The CIS countries are lagging far behind when it comes to trade freedom and to accessibility for foreign companies to begin. Tajikistan has a very strong resources that are currently being untapped. They have one of the largest workforces in Asia. Too many people are unemployed, and investing in free trade with a deal with Asia, which is on the loom, would be a great start for Tajikistan and also a great start for the region.